Hello everyone, my name is Taxalber and welcome back to the Lovecraftian Video Game Retrospective, and let's have a second glance at Lovecraft's Untold Stories. Lovecraft's Untold Stories, which I played as its demo version last time, is a top-down action game in which you take the role of one of 4 investigators. Your role is to investigate various spooky locations, collect clues, collect ammunition, survive, collect equipment. The game has some aspects of a survival horror game. It's just you versus the rest of the world. You fight cultists and monsters. You have to manage your items as well as your stamina and use the different special abilities of your characters. But at the same time, the game is also fairly arcadey. It's not that slow paced for the most part. You can carry a fair amount of items, and there are a couple of things such as having unlimited ammunition for your basic weapons that would probably not be found in most survival horror games. The game uses a 16-bit pixel art style for the most part. It does have a couple of modernisms in there. There are some filters that probably wouldn't have existed in the 16-bit era in that shape. And it also uses a higher resolution for some of the interface, which unfortunately clashes a little bit with the game's general style, but I hope that does get fixed at a later stage. As you can see, the game is played from top-down perspective. It does have a lot of exploration, and while it is primarily geared towards action, you also do some investigating. You can examine a couple of things, you can collect clues, and you can also interact with objects depending on what character you have, whether it's a detective who can do some more investigative stuff, or whether you are another character with more arcane knowledge who can utilize, say, old books and stuff. The game looks actually pretty good, and the soundtrack is alright as well. The level design is quite diverse for the levels. What you can see here is a mention. Later on you'll enter different levels such as the hospital or the caverns. The game is fairly difficult and can be rather unforgiving. Your character is fairly powerful. You've got a couple of different weapons at your disposal. Apart from a basic weapon, you also have stuff like there's Molotov cocktails and mines, all of which can be quite powerful, and most of the enemies aren't super tough. But neither are you, and there were a lot of situations where I found myself being taken out within seconds and I barely knew what was happening, and at the same time there were also other situations where I had the feeling I would be overwhelmed, but then I took out the oppositions within seconds. So it's quite swingy, and the difficulty is not very well balanced across the levels. In fact, the Mansion level is probably one of the hardest in the game, and it's a bit frustrating, not only because it's the earliest level, it's the first in fact, but also because the Mansion is kind of lengthy, and if you have to play it all over again because you get sent back to the checkpoint at the beginning of the Mansion, it can be a little bit frustrating. But once you have better equipment, the game actually gets a little bit easier in the later stages, but developers have promised that this will be balanced later. The game is fairly Lovecraftian in its style, and with regard to all the interaction and the clues you find, it feels more like the Arkham board games, or like one of the Call of Cthulhu role-playing games modules, which may or may not be a plus for you. The game isn't really spooky. It does have some creepy locations, but since your character is pretty powerful, in some regards at least, and since the game is fairly colorful, it is quite dark, but it's also not just realistic brown and grey. The game doesn't quite get the atmosphere that games such as Clock Tower have, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because this game is supposed to be fairly arcadey and not supposed to be a really creepy, spooky horror game where your character is essentially helpless. We might also have to have another look at this game at one point, because while the game is no longer just available as a demo, it has entered early access. So at one point you may have to have a third glance at this game. For the time being, I would recommend this game, but be aware that it does have a lot of rough edges at the time, but I think the basics are there, and everything that is questionable about the game right now can be fixed with relative ease, such as the balancing and the difficulty and strength of the monsters and stuff. And there's also more content to come, because at the time being only 2 characters can be played, one of which has to be unlocked, and the 3 final stages also aren't available yet. Thanks for watching, and I shall see you next time. Take care and goodbye.